I think anyone who picks up a camera has at one point wanted their shots to look like they're straight out of a movie. And in my opinion, there is one type of lens that immediately gives me that feeling. There's just something special about them. They add such a distinct character to an image, and the ultra wide aspect ratio is perfection. This new lens in particular gives me that feeling, and honestly, it feels a bit like I'm cheating because it balances giving you those juicy anamorphic characteristics while still giving you a cleaner look. I could definitely see this lens being divisive. However, I've taken it out on a few occasions and have been loving it so far. So let's talk about it. This is Sirui's new full frame anamorphic cine lens. It's a part of their IronStar series. The set comes in a 35, 45, and 60mm focal length with a T1.9 aperture. Now you can get these in either a blue or a neutral flare option, and I will leave links in the description. Now, this video is not sponsored. Sirui sent me this out to test, but they don't have any say in this video. I'm rocking a neutral 35mm. It weighs just under 1 kilo, but it is quite big though, especially after you put a Sony E-mount adapter on it, which I'll get to in a second. It has 270 degrees of focus throw and a minimum focus distance of 0.65 meters, which is pretty usable. But for someone like me who likes getting close up and shooting those detailed shots, it was quite hard with the 35mm, and I could feel myself being a little bit restricted. It is a manual lens, and as much as I'd love this to be autofocus, you just have to understand that it's very much a professional tool that's meant to be used with focus systems. And if you don't have a focus system, it just makes it that much more challenging to do some run and gun type work. However, it forces you to slow down and be more intentional with your shots. Now, if you don't know what an anamorphic lens is, essentially the lens squishes the image to fit on your camera sensor. After you de-squeeze this image, you get a much wider aspect ratio. This lens has a 1.5 times constant squeeze ratio, which looks like this. It's roughly in the middle of anamorphic ratios, and I think it's in the perfect spot. If you go with a 1.33 times squeeze, it's not enough for me. And if you go with the 2 times, I would love this, but it does limit versatility because it's such a thin strip of footage. In terms of image quality, this lens is interesting. A lot of anamorphic lenses have quite bold characteristics. I like lenses that add to my style, my creative flair, or my storytelling, and I'm very much willing to spend money on that because I love photography. However, depending on what you're doing, you may need a cleaner image. And this lens has that character that I mentioned, but it's dialed down and has more of a modern take, which necessarily isn't a bad thing. The biggest benefit of all is versatility. It can easily be used on personal creative projects and still be clean enough for commercial projects. And the 1.5 times squeeze ratio is much more viable to work with. The images you get out of this thing though are phenomenal, right? It has hints of all those things I love about anamorphic lenses without going way overboard. So for people that want to get more creative flair in their shots but don't want to overdo it, this is perfect. In terms of the anamorphic characteristics, here's what you can expect from this lens because that's ultimately what you are here for. You're getting quite a sharp image on the IronStar, not as sharp as a spherical lens, but it is a lot sharper than my vintage lenses. So it is a nice balance, I'd say. As with most anamorphics, the sharpness falls off towards the edges, so it is the sharpest at the center. I personally love this, but it is something that I had to get used to because I'd be focusing on things on the left or the right, and when I checked my footage, it seemed like it wasn't quite in focus. The sharpness fall off is really nice though, and it is very smooth across the image. For bokeh, here is a wide open shot to show you what the bokeh looks like on the 35mm. They are not always oval shaped. They have quite a unique look and can be a little bit boxy. That's largely due to the placement of the anamorphic elements. Where you place those elements will have an effect on the shape of the bokeh balls. At the rear, it's more square, and at the front, it's more of that oval shape we're used to. The IronStars though are in the center, which is why I think we're getting this mixture of shapes right here. I think it looks cool, but it doesn't satisfy that oval shape that I'm chasing. It also has a slight pincushion distortion, which isn't normally popular, but it's not something I can really notice, so it's not really an issue or a benefit for me. Even things like lens flares are dialed down, but I kind of like this because they can be quite distracting sometimes. When they appear though, they create a really nice flare. You get these nice long streaks, you get a speckle of mismatched oval and spherical shapes moving across your image, and occasionally you'll run into the lava lamp type flares, and this could be quite distracting, but it does add a little bit of charm to the image. Overall, I think they look fantastic and are pretty easy to achieve if you know how to work the lens. There also wasn't any major vignetting or aberrations that I could notice on my image too. Now, when it comes to the design of these lenses, the construction is high quality. It's an all metal and glass construction, and they look so damn nice. Even the resistance on the focus and aperture rings is perfect. At the bottom, there is a 1/4 inch threaded base, which you can take on and off, and the lens does have an interchangeable mount. Every lens comes with a native PL mount and an EF mount with dedicated tools to change between them, and it's as simple as just unscrewing 4 screws. PL mounts are the industry standard for cinema cameras and lenses, and in general are superior. So it does make sense that they chose these. For me though, I have Sony and Fuji cameras, so Sirui had to send me a PL to Sony E-mount adapter so I could test this lens. Just factor that into the price when you consider this. I also do really like the look of the adapter. The IronStar series is rocking a 92mm front thread, which is an awkward size and not really that easy to find. Fortunately, they do offer filters, a CPL and a VND in their kit only. I will note that you can fit a 95mm clamp on matte box to this lens. But it would be great if Sirui did make a PL adapter that allowed you to insert filters behind the lens. That would be amazing. Now, across the lineup, I only tested the 35mm lens. Sirui have said that there will be consistent temperature and tone across the set, and mine seems pretty neutral to warm. They have tried to make all the lenses consistently sized so the dials line up. Sirui have also said that they will be releasing more focal lengths in the future, a 75, 100, and 135. Other than the, anamorphic looks cool, there are some practical benefits to shooting with an anamorphic lens, and the biggest one for me is maintaining my focal length whilst getting more in the frame. Normally, I lean towards shooting at higher focal lengths just because I want more compression in my images, but it can be a little bit hard to frame my subject properly and still get the background in the shot. However, with anamorphic lenses, that is solved. For example, I can shoot at 35mm, and because it's a 1.5 times crop, the horizontal aspect is the equivalent of a 20mm lens, which is why I really like this focal length in particular. Now, when it comes to pricing, you can choose from a blue or a neutral fare for any of the lenses. A single lens kit includes the lens, the mounting modules, and a lens pouch to house it all. And all of that costs about $11.99 USD. The 3 lens kit includes the lenses, the mounting modules, a CPL and a VND, and a hard case to house it all. And that'll set you back about $3,600 US. There are cheaper lenses available from Sirui, so if you were tossing up between those and the IronStar series, the IronStar has better quality in all aspects. It's got a great build quality, it's a professional PL mount, it's constant squeeze ratio, T1.9 so you get better low light and bokeh, and it suits full frame cameras. Now, I absolutely love the balance of the modern and vintage characteristics, and I keep saying it, but this lens is dialed down, which will appeal to a lot of people. Not everybody wants those characteristics that distract from the storytelling. They just want a relatively clean image that has those subtle hints of anamorphic character, and I think this lens nails that. However, if you are not in this boat and you want to look at your image and be like, wow, that's a really unique image, this is not that, my friends. For $1,200 USD, I think this is a solid price. It's good when you consider the usual cost of anamorphic lenses, but for someone coming from spherical lenses, it can be very, very expensive. I like this lens a lot, and I probably will be using it as my primary for a while. It's very versatile, but it is a lens catered to someone who is more comfortable using manual lenses in their workflow. For run and gun, you will have to slow down and be more intentional, but I think you need to just consider your own workflow and if you can swallow the cost to get a really nice image.